Hey, I'm Jack Carter, 36 years old, a software engineer by profession. I've always been a logical thinker, someone who relies on facts and evidence rather than superstition. Ghost stories? Paranormal encounters? I used to laugh them off. But that was before the night of September 23, 2018. That night changed everything for me. It was a Sunday, and I was home alone. My wife, Emily, was out of town on a business trip. She had left early that morning, and I spent the day catching up on work and watching TV. By the time evening rolled around, I decided to relax with a glass of whiskey and a good book. It was around 11:15 p.m. when things started to get strange. The house was unusually quiet, even for a Sunday night. The kind of silence that makes you uneasy, like the calm before a storm. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, engrossed in my book, when I heard a noise upstairs. It was faint at first, like something shuffling across the floor. I paused, listening intently. The sound grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't just the house settling or the wind rattling the windows. It was the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving across the floor directly above me. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just my imagination. After all, the house was old, and old houses make noises. But as the footsteps continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I called out, "Emily?" even though I knew she wasn't there. My voice echoed through the empty house, but there was no response. The footsteps stopped abruptly, and for a moment everything was silent again. But that silence didn't last long. A low, guttural whisper began to fill the room, so faint at first that I thought I was hearing things. But as the whispering grew louder, I realized it wasn't coming from outside or from the TV. It was inside the house, surrounding me, like invisible voices all around. The whispers were incoherent, like a dozen voices talking over each other, their words lost in a sinister murmur. My heart started pounding in my chest, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I put my book down and stood up, trying to locate the source of the sound, but it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The air in the room grew colder, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, my mind racing with questions. Was there someone else in the house? Could it be a burglar, or something worse? I slowly made my way to the staircase, the flashlight casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. The footsteps had stopped, but the whispers persisted, now seeming to follow me as I ascended the stairs. When I reached the top, I noticed something strange. The temperature in the hallway had dropped significantly, like stepping into a freezer. My breath misted in the air as I moved cautiously toward the master bedroom. I hesitated for a moment before opening the door, my hand trembling as it rested on the cold doorknob. The door creaked open, revealing the dark room beyond. Everything appeared normal at first glance. The bed was neatly made, the curtains drawn, and nothing seemed out of place. But as I stepped inside, I felt a heavy presence in the room, something unseen but undeniably there. That's when I saw it. Standing in the far corner, near the closet, was a figure. Tall, thin, and barely visible in the darkness. Its face was obscured by shadows, but I could feel its eyes on me, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I froze in place, my heart racing as I stared at the figure. It didn't move, didn't make a sound. It just stood there, an ominous presence that filled the room with dread. I wanted to scream, to run, but my legs felt like they were rooted to the spot. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished. One moment it was there, and the next it was gone, leaving behind only the lingering sense of terror. The whispers stopped abruptly, plunging the house into a heavy silence once more. I stumbled backward, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Was it a ghost? A hallucination? Or something else entirely? I didn't know, and I wasn't sure I wanted to find out. I fled the room, nearly tripping over my own feet as I bolted down the stairs. My phone was on the coffee table in the living room, and I grabbed it, desperate to call Emily or the police. But when I dialed her number, the line was dead. No dial tone, no connection, just silence. That's when I heard a loud crash from upstairs, like something heavy being thrown against the wall. My heart skipped a beat, and I knew I had to get out of the house. But as I rushed to the front door, it slammed shut in front of me, the lock clicking into place with a finality that sent a wave of panic through me. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if some unseen force was holding it closed, trapping me inside. The whispers started again, louder this time, echoing through the house like a chorus of malevolent voices. Desperate, I ran to the windows, trying to pry them open, but they were stuck fast. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape. The voices grew louder, filling my head with their chaotic murmurings, driving me to the brink of madness. I fell to my knees, clutching my head as the voices intensified, until they were all I could hear. I felt like my skull was going to explode, the pressure unbearable. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The house fell silent once more, the oppressive energy lifting like a weight off my chest. I slowly opened my eyes, my heart still racing. Everything was quiet again, the air still and cold. I stood up on shaky legs, glancing around the room. The front door was now ajar, as if inviting me to leave. Without a second thought, I bolted out of the house and ran down the street, not stopping until I reached my neighbor's porch. They must have seen the terror in my eyes because they didn't ask any questions. They just let me in, offered me a seat, and called Emily for me. When she returned the next day, I refused to go back to that house. We moved out within a week, leaving behind everything. Furniture, belongings, even the memories of that night. The realtor found another buyer quickly, someone who didn't ask too many questions. But I knew the truth. That house wasn't just old. It was haunted, cursed, or something far worse. Even now, years later, I still think about that night. I can still hear those whispers in my dreams, faint and distant, calling to me from the shadows. I don't talk about it much, but sometimes, when I'm alone and the house is quiet, I wonder if whatever was in that house ever really left. So, believe what you want. Call me crazy if you like. But I know what I experienced that night. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone.